In a time of great national tension, where war drums echoed and patriotism was tested, one man stood resolute against the tide. Eugene Victor Debs, a pacifist, a socialist, and a beacon of civil liberties. From labor movements to a prison cell, his journey challenges our understanding of freedom and justice. Dive with us into the life, the trials, and the enduring legacy of one of America's most compelling figures. The early 20th century was a time of significant change and upheaval. Industrialization, rapid urbanization, and burgeoning workers' movements marked the domestic front, while overseas, empires grappled for power, culminating in First World War. World War, often referred to as the Great War, was unlike any conflict seen before. It involved major powers across the globe and introduced the world to the horrors of modern warfare, including trench warfare, chemical weapons, and staggering casualty figures. In the U.S., the decision to enter the war in 1917 was deeply polarizing. While many believed that the U.S. had a moral obligation to fight against the Central Powers and to make the world safe for democracy, as President Woodrow Wilson stated, others felt that America should remain isolated from European conflicts. Eugene Victor Debs was born on November 5, 1855, in Terre Haute, Indiana. Of Alsatian French ancestry, the Debs family lived modestly but placed a high value on education and intellectual pursuits. As a young boy, Debs was influenced by both the bustling railroad activity of Terre Haute and the literature he voraciously consumed. By the age of 14, he had left school to work in the rail yards, starting as a paint scraper and later working as a locomotive fireman. While his formal education was brief, Debs' experiences on the railroads and his self-driven exploration of literature, especially works on labor and socialism, would lay the foundation for his later activism. It was during these formative years that he was introduced to the hardships faced by the working class, planting the seeds of his lifelong commitment to workers' rights. Debs' first-hand experience in the railroad industry made him acutely aware of the precarious conditions faced by the workers. Recognizing the need for collective action, in 1893, he co-founded the American Railway Union, ARU. The ARU was unique in that it aimed to unite all railroad workers, regardless of their craft or service role, making it one of the first industrial unions in the U.S. The union's prominence soared in 1894 with the Pullman strike. The Pullman Palace Car Company, facing financial setbacks, had slashed workers' wages without reducing rents in the company town, leading to immense hardships for its employees. The ARU, under Debs' leadership, spearheaded a boycott in support of the Pullman workers, which quickly grew into a nationwide railway strike involving over 250,000 workers. Unfortunately for Debs and the ARU, the federal government intervened, securing an injunction against the strike and ultimately using federal troops to quash it. Debs was arrested and served a short prison sentence. Though the strike was unsuccessful, it catapulted Debs to national prominence and solidified his belief in the need for a broader political solution to workers' issues. Upon his release from prison, Debs began touring the country, delivering speeches that blended his passion for workers' rights with socialist principles. Recognizing the potential for a political movement that could address systemic labor issues, Debs played a pivotal role in founding the Socialist Party of America in 1901. Under his leadership, the party gained traction. Debs himself ran for the U.S. presidency as the Socialist Party's candidate 5 times, with his highest vote share coming in 1912 when he garnered 6% of the national vote. Through his campaigns and activism, Debs sought to challenge the capitalist status quo and advocate for a society where workers were not just cogs in a machine but were respected and valued contributors to the nation's prosperity. First World War, often termed the Great War, began in 1914, but the U.S. initially opted for neutrality, with President Woodrow Wilson famously saying that America must be impartial in thought as well as in action. However, several factors, including the unrestricted submarine warfare conducted by the Germans and the interception of the Zimmermann telegram, which revealed a proposed alliance between Germany and Mexico against the U.S., pushed the nation towards war. In April 1917, Wilson sought and received a declaration of war from Congress. By the time the war concluded in 1918, over 2 million American troops had served on the battlefields of Western Europe. Throughout the war, Eugene Debs was a vocal critic of U.S. involvement. In various speeches and articles, he framed the conflict as a capitalist endeavor, arguing that the working class was being forced to bear the brunt of a war they did not choose. Debs insisted that the real enemies were not overseas but at home in the form of capitalist oppressors. He also criticized the draft and the suppression of civil liberties under the guise of wartime necessity. Perhaps the most notable of Debs' speeches was delivered in Canton, Ohio in 1918. Speaking to a crowd at Nemesilla Park, Debs reiterated his anti-war stance, showing support for those imprisoned for obstructing the draft. He said, "They have always taught and trained you to believe it to be your patriotic duty to go to war and have yourselves slaughtered at their command." This speech was not only a denunciation of the war, but also a broader critique of the capitalist system and the suppression of rights in the name of wartime expediency. The Canton speech was consequential. It directly led to Debs' arrest and subsequent trial under the Espionage Act. He was charged with 10 counts of sedition for his words, which the authorities claimed could incite insubordination within the armed forces and obstruct enlistment. Debs' time in prison was fraught with challenges. Being in his early 60s, the prison environment took a toll on his health. The harsh conditions, combined with the strain of confinement, exacerbated existing ailments and introduced new health concerns. However, Debs was not a passive inmate. Inside the prison walls, he became an advocate for his fellow prisoners, listening to their grievances and often providing advice. His charisma and reputation as a labor leader and political activist earned him the respect of many inmates, leading some to affectionately call him Uncle Gene. Debs also continued his intellectual pursuits. He maintained a voracious reading habit, going through numerous books on socialism, history, and philosophy. This allowed him to correspond with fellow socialists and supporters outside prison, sharing his insights and keeping the flame of his beliefs alive. One of the most remarkable episodes during his incarceration was his run for the presidency in 1920. Even from within prison, Debs managed to secure nearly 1 million votes, a testament to his enduring influence and the resonance of his message. The continued advocacy for Debs' release became a significant movement. Many believed his imprisonment was a grave injustice and a violation of his First Amendment rights. In 1921, President Warren G. Harding commuted Debs' sentence to time served, citing health concerns. After serving nearly 3 years, Debs was released on Christmas Day, an event met with widespread celebration among his supporters. Following his release from prison in 1921, Eugene Debs did not recede into quiet retirement. Though his health had declined due to the harsh conditions of his imprisonment, his spirit remained indomitable. He returned to Terre Haute, Indiana, and was given a hero's welcome by thousands of supporters who regarded him not just as a political activist, but as a champion of civil liberties. Despite the strains of incarceration, Debs continued to write, speak, and advocate for the causes dear to him. The legacy of Eugene V. Debs reminds us of the lasting impact one voice can make in the annals of history. If you've been inspired by his story or simply want to journey with us through more untold tales, please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into history's most compelling figures. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.